Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are back with another live stream of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, October 30th. We're starting at around 4 p.m., which I think is the right time. I think I'm finally getting an idea of like what the right time is to do. So we have a Mage Shaman overlap, so let's trade out this middle one. And that leaves us just with winning 2 games with Mage and playing, well, two games with Shaman and playing 50 Shaman cards and play 30 minions that cost 2 or less, all of which lines up pretty nicely. Now, we haven't gotten a second entry for free into the arena run, which I wouldn't be surprised if we don't. And let's see, do I have a Shaman deck here that's not just built around the Murlocs? How many of the Murloc cards are actually Shaman cards? Well, enough. Well, not enough actually, because we're in a weird position. Since it's Monday, I only have to get 2 of these things done, and one of these could easily be skipped and traded out for something bigger. I am, by going to 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on streaming, probably affecting how often I trade out things and getting less gold slightly. That being said, we're close to 5,000 and they haven't even announced the next expansion. That doesn't mean a lot, however, because the last time, if I recall correctly, they kind of just announced it, the expansion, a week before, so you have to kind of move forward assuming that something's going to happen. So let's get rid of just this custom paladin, which, having an extra slot, something just open to allow.
If you make a wild deck, you can only use it in wild games.
To allow you to constantly make new decks when necessary has proven to be way more useful than having like the Murloc deck. It's been way more useful than trying to make anything that's specifically focused around like winning or making a specific daily quest get. Like, we have all of these other decks, Secrets and Spells, Beast 3 Attack, Murlocs, all of these ideas of decks that are fine to have and you might as well have them, but much more often than I've played the Death Rattle deck, I've come back and made something new. So I could see definitely an argument for just always having several open things. I'm adjusting the audio again, trying to get it right. So again, any feedback on the chat will help with that. And then we have a lot of video game news too. I don't know what to do particularly with the news. Like, it's a weird thing. I totally get that some people don't like the news. A lot of people probably don't like the news. But it's the only way this stream goes on too. That's the other part of that. If I said no news or significantly filtered news, there's just going to be more post-show, more muted post-show play, and people definitely don't really like the muted post-show play. That being said, it still clearly is helping the streams. Just being on longer in general gets the videos promoted, which seems crazy and stupid, and it's a really bad system that YouTube has got here, but we can get into a whole bunch of conversations about YouTube's bad systems. So, yeah. The news is kind of here to stay. I don't know how to improve it. There's really nothing else I can even talk about. I could say, like, this whole weekend I've spent not doing anything with my channel at all, not recording. I've been very lazy. I've also, in a lot of ways, I need to stop saying the phrase lazy too, because several people have tried to come back and say, you sound like you're lazy to me on this channel, and I don't know if I specifically have covered that in the new updated rules, which nobody's mentioned so far, but several people have called me lazy after I told them no, I wouldn't do what they wanted to do. It seems to be the default insult of backseat drivers on YouTube, which honestly isn't going to help win. It's not going to win me over more. I need to, but for my part on that, I need to not encourage people to use that phrase. I've been taking days off and taking a weekend off, even though in my mind I don't think about it nearly as much as I know I should, and this is a problem that a lot of people have, particularly in the United States, where they just constantly feel like they need to be working. They constantly feel like they should be doing more, and it just causes people to overwork themselves and burn themselves out. So, but that being said, yeah, I didn't record anything, so I've been mostly watching Netflix and was I doing anything else besides? No, not really. Mostly watching Netflix. I watched all of the Black Mirror series and was very disappointed in that. That series was very overhyped by a few people that had my ear at the time, I suppose, and after watching it, it was not good. It was like, I barely liked the 3 seasons, like one ending of one episode in the middle of another episode. Gearbox Studios Quebec is 2 years old today. Wow. I would not have thought it was that old. There's several announcements that came out on a Monday, which is interesting because I was more of the opinion that Mondays were the slow days. We weren't going to get anything. It's also, I guess, a little surprising that as we're approaching November, we're still getting announcements. I wonder, it'll be interesting to see if the announcements are built around games that will be released in 2017, or if these are 2018 announcements. Well, nothing's gonna work here. I can kill these two and didn't do 1 damage, and then I can evolve for charge. Or I could evolve now and hope for charge. Job's done. The Samaritan Paradox is airing today, so that is the first of my games I got free month, which is an awkward thing. Like, October being a Halloween month for video games, and then Thanksgiving being a games I got free because of Thanksgiving for video games, and then December being here's the sort of Christmas, Kwanzaa, and Hanukkah games, if any of those exist, puts
you win this time.
Puts it in a weird position where for 3 months that we're going along themes, and then it's only going to get weirder when January hits, and the things I air are going to be a little bit shorter and a little bit longer. 2018, my goal is to kind of not have series go for a month, but more like 2 months. Have episodes go a little bit longer, and this is all just to stretch. There will be less variety because I'm playing fewer games. But I just want to move forward, and I just want to have a year in advance. And I'm never going to reach that level of I'm never going to reach that level of buffer unless I slow down and stop just pushing all of the videos that I record out. And frankly, I started off strong. I'm over 5,000. It'll probably take me a year extra to get to 10,000 videos. And if YouTube doesn't really step up its limits, it is possible that you can't even have 10,000 videos. I may have to, I don't know, like make a backup channel just to upload the old videos. I mean, I seriously have no clue if there is some hard limit. Speaking of YouTube, they've promised to announce a new version 0.2, I would say, of their ad-friendly bot that scans videos and determines things to probably maybe not be ad-friendly. And it really has, for the most part, with maybe 5 exceptions, undid all of the videos that were flagged for ad-friendly, which is weird because it also like undid downfall. So now I'm like, there's one downfall episode that is still labeled as advertiser unfriendly, and I'm like, well, then I'd like a review of that because your bot determined none of the other ones were. Things with dead in the name, like Dead Space, Resident Evil, which has evil in the name, all seem to be immediately reversed. Pretty Girl Mahjong, which really only gets flagged for the fact that it looks like it is a sex game, but actually it isn't. It's just got some anime girls that are fully clothed. The worst you get is a full, like, standard school swimsuit. One piece. Maybe a 2-piece bikini is in the game at some point, just a standard one. Like, nothing that I think really deserves to be called advertiser unfriendly, particularly when you start looking at the advertisements that you get around to. So the only one series that I can now kind of agree with what their standard is, now that I've seen what they've reversed on their own decisions, is Honey Pop, which I didn't bother to even request a review for because, alright, fair enough. Like, the one game that probably does violate their rule of being sexually suggestive is the sexually suggestive sex game that has puzzle matching in it. But everything else, Wolfenstein, has gone back and been done. A lot of games clearly were flagged because there was a gun in it. So that seems to be done. I think in a lot of ways it may very well be that the YouTube might just be adopting a policy that they should have had in the first place, which is to say they should have only dealt with things as they were flagged. If the idea...
Light wins, but we fight.
Darn it. Hold on, I guess I have to. But I guess they needed to pander to the advertisers a little bit more than that.
Do you hear it?
We got away with that for a long time, where ads were going on all the videos with no real questioning of it. It's a funny situation too, because very rarely have there been any instances where an advertiser, like on the TV or radio station, came back and said they didn't want their ads playing on the show. But there have been a decent number of instances where, like, talk radio hosts have gotten in trouble or gotten canceled for doing something controversial, so that the advertisers can't pull out. And I guess that's the level of help and control that doesn't exist on YouTube. Is if somebody like Howard Stern does something and advertisers start to pull out, it's the station manager's prerogative at that point to determine whether they fire Howard Stern or whether they just potentially lose a advertiser. So I haven't gotten into cool news yet. Did I even hit the timer? Yes, I did. But now that I'm doing the timer as it is, I suppose what I should do is see if I can do both. Let's see. Oh yeah, you can, on Android at least, you can do a stopwatch and a timer at the same time. So that was the 2 victories really quickly. And now we're halfway through the Shaman card. Easy enough. Let's watch this video. There's an indie competitive fighter called Punch Planet, which is in early access next month. This is an advertisement. I think I've determined not to point out when reviews are PC Gamer reviews, except for when it's really, really useful. The problem here is that, oh, this is interesting. It seems like there's only 4 fighters in this game, maybe a few more, and there's 1 giantess lady, there's 1 guy with a gun, the lady has an axe, there's a militaristic lady with knives, and there's a dog. Yeah, and those seem to be the only 4 characters in the game. Interesting. And now they're saying coming soon there's gonna be 4 more characters. What's interesting is this looks like an attempt to make something like Street Fighter, but kind of in a more sci-fi-esque way. It kind of has an old 80s futuristic style to its animation. It's it was created by 3 men, a 3-man studio that includes a Double Fine designer, and it will hit early access November 8th. So what does it really mean to be a Double Fine designer is the question. It probably means that you were fired or quit right before Double Fine was making Psychonauts. Like, think about that for a second. It's like,
this guy's toast.
being an ex-Valve writer is a much better title than to be an ex-Double Fine designer, because in the instance of Valve, just as an example, if you left Valve, everybody knows it's because Valve's not making video games. If you leave Double Fine, you're kind of saying you left a place that was making video games, at least a few. But they wanted to do their own thing, and the fact that this isn't on Fig seems a little odd too. So, like, well, whatever. I mean, people get fired in the video game industry all the time, but it kind of also goes to show that your resume doesn't really get improved as much as you might think just because you work for a big company. In video games, it probably looks better than others. Like, it's a lot easier to see through somebody that says I work for one of the largest companies in the world, and you find out that they were just a grocer or stock boy at Walmart or a burger flipper at McDonald's. Here's an article I was going to read about do radiator sizes matter if you're going to do liquid cooling. And I think I'm still very much in the point where I don't think people, except for people with a lot of money willing to leak money on their liquid on their highly expensive computers, I don't think people should do liquid cooling. Even for streamers, it makes no sense because the liquid cooling solutions actually make more noise than a fan does. Liquid cooling only kind of makes sense if you plan on heavily overclocking, which is dangerous. So you're adding heavily overclocking on top of potentially leaking liquid, all to spend more money to get just a few more cycles out of your CPU. Brutal Doom is adding a night vision rocket launcher and a revamped online multiplayer, which is crazy because I'm pretty sure Brutal Doom well, apparently this is the 21st version of Brutal Doom. I didn't realize that. I thought Brutal Doom was just a mod that came out back when Doom was big, like 20 years ago. I didn't realize people were still working on it. So, I assume that the new versions of Brutal Doom still would work on your standard Doom emulators. So my RetroPie might be able to play it. Not that I would want to play it. I love Doom from a distance, but honestly, the old games are just not for me. What is probably the third of at least 4 or 5 mouse-related games called Mousy Ghost of a Tale. Wait, no, it's just called Ghost of a Tale, which is an RPG, is coming out in March. It's already been in early access. It hits early access in June. So March 2018. It looks a lot cuter than some of the other mouse things, but I also thought it was going to be more of a story game than an RPG. In a weird way, it kind of looks like a Skyrim game just with mice. which I guess that is one way you could make a Skyrim ripoff and not potentially get sued. It says the game is light on combat, so sneaking, disguising, and talking your way out of any sticky situations. It's $25 when it goes on sale, so it's not going to be a $60 top of the line expensive game. And let's just watch the trailer, because that's the weird thing too, is the only part I've seen of this has been where it seems like he starts in jail and escapes jail, and then there's a couple screenshots once he's out of being in jail. Let's keep playing too. Won't work. Let's deal 3 damage overload. Of course, using a coin then overloading is probably the worst thing you can do. So here's a game called You're Unlimited.
Let the pain
wait,
speak
it's
to me.
Earn UURN. Let's see. It's made by a game called Nifless Games, best known for the Kryt series, KRYT. That's not a series I've ever heard of. Well, the game looks kind of blocky and cutesy, but not like 8-bit graphics or anything. It just seems like a lot of the blocks with funny eyes. Plays like a 2D platformer, but it's a game about collecting things and flexible logic puzzles and multiple solutions. What?
You are weak.
Yeah, like here's a video of somebody playing, and there's like boxes that hover that you can bounce around. You have to throw those boxes. Deal 1 damage, freeze it. Yeah, I'm still not sure about this game. Find more details about the release date in this article. This one just feels weird. Like, it might be interesting to play if I could overlook the graphics, which I kind of don't like, but it also kind of feels like it's just a puzzle platformer game with some weird graphics. And I have like no dates of if it's out or when it's out or what consoles it is. So inevitably this is just an advertisement. If I've seen it so many other times. See, I can either heal. I also did look at the what was it? The Twitch is streaming Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, and boy is that a waste of time. Both to watch Yu-Gi-Oh! The cartoon and to watch it on Twitch, which puts in rather long commercial breaks in which they do nothing for no reason. Like, in all honesty, if you were gonna watch the entire Yu-Gi-Oh series, you should watch it on an accelerated pace and cut out all the commercial breaks, and maybe then you could, from a nostalgia point, like it. But so much of Yu-Gi-Oh is just them saying the same thing over and over again, explaining what they want the cards to be this time, making things up as they go. Really, there are several YouTube channels that do a bridge series, and like Sword Art Online Abridged is actually very good, because it's not even just, it's not actually an abridgment of the story so much as it is a retelling and criticism of the story. I think you could do a direct retelling abridgment of Yu-Gi-Oh! And get it down to less than 2 hours for the entire series of the original series alone.
Listen closely.
Or you could go on the comedy route and give the general idea of what happens, because it's really just the general idea that matters. And there is kind of a sad incompleteness as far as I understand it. Maybe there was a Yu-Gi-Oh movie that finally explained the whole thing with the Egyptian puzzle pieces and things. If any of that ever came to any kind of final conclusion or not, I never felt it like it did. And of course, there's plenty of old Yu-Gi-Oh games that take the story and do whatever they want. Moving on to the next story, the hand-drawn JRPG called Battlefield Arbiter's Mark meets its Kickstarter goal, early access in March. So it seems like it's a grid play-based movement. And there we go, we zap a ad. Let's see. So my ad blocker has this interesting ability to zap ads, just elements in a thing you don't like. And by doing that, on PC Gamer, it goes from this empty space where there would have been an ad to an actual just like decent paragraph of storyline that I can read without having to scroll down so much. Apparently for this game, Arbiter's Mark fell sale. Arbiter's Mark, the first two story battles are on itch.io. The hand-drawn element is interesting. I mean, it does give it kind of a rougher look than the clear CG heavily look you usually get in other games. But it is also a JRPG, so I'd never play it. It has all of the stats and all of the actions, and it doesn't seem like it's set particularly anywhere that special, but it's more of a fantasy game than your like a sci-fi game, or I guess in Final Fantasy style games where I don't even know what genre you would call those at that point. We're talking Final Fantasy. It had a $40,000 Kickstarter goal, which is way too little. I just don't know. Like, here's the beginning of the end of a game like this, is now they've got to deliver. They've been given the money they want, but was that really enough money? Like, $40,000 Just put it down like this. $40,000 is probably a decent amount of money for somebody to make as a full-time job for 1 year. So did the Kickstarters just play for one animator who's also going to program and do all of the other work for 1 year? Because it usually takes 2 or 3 years, if not 4, 5, 6 years to make a game, particularly if you're not getting pressed or being funded. And if there's 2 people in the mix, that just makes it worse. Like, did we pay for 2 people to work for 6 months? Or was the $40,000 just for advertising? And if it was, well then that is really low. Or was the $40,000 just to do pre-orders? If that's the case, and then their only profit is going to be $40,000 on this game, which is not that much.
Oops, I broke a diamond.
Like, 40,000 doesn't seem like a lot when you start to think about what that really means. Job done. Here's a list of 10 games to watch at PAX Australia.
Do you hear its call?
Let's see.
Listen closely.
There's a company called Love Shack that made a game called Framed, which is a puzzle game for cell phones, and apparently it's going to come out as Framed Collection on PC. I'm for this because I think we're gonna see that there was a decent number of cell phone games that did get created as cell phones went from being dumb phones to smartphones in the 5 to 10 years that that's happened. So now it's always worth noticing that there's the vast majority of cell phone games are terrible. I have to think there's a few hidden gems in there that could come to PC. That being said, every cell phone game or game that I played on Steam that felt like it was a cell phone port doesn't live up to any kind of standards. Let's see. And I guess it probably says something that the very first game, because these aren't in alphabetical order or anything, the very first game that they talk about is a collection of cell phone games from PAX Australia. Which is to say, while some games are getting announced at PAX, particularly the small indie ones that don't want to compete with the large announcements that you would have at E3, there's still not a heavy standard on as far as do you release your game at PAX East or PAX West or PAX Australia, or do you go to Gamescom, or do you do the Tokyo Game Show? Like, there's several different ways this could go down. Next game is called The Medieval, and it looks just like a kind of first-person shooter. And it frankly bored me even in the trailer, so cover it anyway. Next game is called Rumu? R-U-M-U? And it's a little Roomba robot type thing that I think the idea is this is like that movie with the robot that was supposed to clean up all of Earth. I think the idea here is that the Roomba robot has been left on the planet or left alone for some reason. And now he's gonna go outside and see what kind of adventures he can have. That's like that. It's a single player narrative driven adventure game. Yep. Okay, I would play that. Are there any ideas as far as when it's going to be released though? Late 2017. Well, you don't have much time left if you're going for late 2017. Let's see. Next game is called Aura of Worlds. Let's see, it's a side-scrolling roguelike, which is actually out now on itch.io. Graphics look a little simplistic. You zoomed out quite a bit for a side-scrolling roguelike. And honestly, this game's not going to sell, particularly since Spelunky 2 has just been announced. And that will be something I'll talk about later. Let's see. Next one's called Sky Noon. Here's a game called... They're saying it looks like Overwatch according to the summary, except for everybody's free. So the idea is everybody's a cowboy, except for it's running, gunning, jumping in low gravity, grappling hook. Seems to be platforms that you're fighting on, so a slightly different experience, I would say. Overwatch with multiple levels. It seems to have kind of a Smash Brothers in 3D style where you're trying to knock people off. I think without a significant number of different characters and different levels, this game, a game like this is going to immediately fail for that reason. It does seem to have some like system in which you're trying to direct a train, kind of like a capture the flag. Yeah, even if it did succeed with multiple characters and multiple levels to be a good game, I still think it's gonna fail completely because there's just gonna be so much advertising and push to put people in Overwatch that I don't see the community jumping around to some small indie version of something that's trying to be somewhat similar to Overwatch. This next game looks interesting. It's called Necro Barista, and it looks like an adventure game, but it also does seem like it has a lot of text in it. So this feels like a game I would particularly like to have voice acting in. But let's see if I can read anymore. It's coming out in 2018. It looks very well animated, and that's the one thing that's coming out for PC and Mac. says that Necrobeast isn't just made in Melbourne, it's about the place and its cafe culture. The setting is a coffee shop in a disused tram depot in the suburb of Carlton, with a twist that one night where ghosts return to the land of the living and apparently thirst for coffee. Melbourne's coffee is pretty good, so fair enough. The story plays out as a visual novel, but a 3D one with dialogue projected on the wall and anime characters walking around, which I don't know if they're actually, I don't know if I'd classify those as anime characters as much as maybe what Melbourne, Australia thinks anime characters are. They have too much of their own style. 3D CGI characters, they look better than half the Telltale novels. Some of the cutscenes at least. So here's a game I'd play, but I'd also regret. I would really regret playing it because of the visual novel aspect. So I would, if I was the person in charge of that, I would say forget the barista part of the visual novel part of it, and instead focus on a single player adventure game. Put in some maybe point and click adventure style of gameplays where you collect items and have to interact with items and have some puzzles there. I think that would work a lot better. So we've got all of the quests that we really need to get done. I probably will trade this one out tomorrow. And so it's time to move over to the European thing. There's a few more things to talk about, so I'll just break up this recording and then we'll talk about the other games at PAX Australia. This is a good article to cover, I think. It's something new for me to cover games that were shown off that are new, but more and more I think it's going to be necessary. And at the very least it balances out the constant flow of announcements from Japanese games, which a lot of that gets covered. That's going to be it for this recording. Stay tuned if you're watching live. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.